On this week's FPL Happy Hour.
Have a few
Even
more
though
beers.
I had to spend like 5 minutes convincing Suj that you were Panda. He was
Yeah.
like, "That's not Rob," and I was like, "Mate, it's Rob," and he was like, "It's not fucking Rob," and I was like, "Mate, it is."
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to FPL Happy Hour, episode 3 of season 3, with myself, Sham, otherwise known as FPL 2 Guys 1 Cup on Twitter.
And myself, Rob, otherwise known as FPL Panda.
Rob, how are you, mate?
I've recovered. Took a while to recover from the exploits of the weekend, but yeah, all good. Lots of sport on TV at the moment. There's something big going
the
on
Olympics.
in Japan. So yeah, that's been quite nice. Whilst working at home, just being able to just have it on in the background. Watch some dancing horses yesterday for a bit. And
How did you find the meetup?
Yeah, it was good fun. From what I can remember, yeah, like meeting like so many faces that we've interacted with in the last couple of years, really. Yeah, haven't met anyone before, so apart from yourself, and it was like, yeah, good to just put face to Twitter handle and yeah, have a few beers and have a few
Even
more
though
beers.
I had to spend like 5 minutes convincing Suj that you were Panda. He was
Yeah.
like, "That's not Rob," and I was like, "Mate, it's Rob," and he was like, "It's not fucking Rob," and I was like, "Mate, it is."
Yeah, that was quite amusing. Yeah, it's the fact that hi Serge, because you're probably watching. Yeah, he sits there and he watches the YouTube videos rather than the recordings of the audio, so he sees it all. There's been stuff that I've done with Planet FPL for competitions last season and stuff where I was on the videos, and yeah, I must look really different in person. I don't know.
Yeah, you're definitely taller. I did say that to you.
I'm taller in person. Well, it's because
Um,
do you want me to sit a bit should I sit like this from now on?
My highlight of the evening was when I was with Claire. Hi, Claire, if you're listening. And she's a West Ham fan, and we went into a rendition of "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles" in the middle of the pub, and just belted that in the middle of the pub, and then everyone was looking, and we just loved it.
Was that in the first pub?
That was
Was that in
first
the
pub.
I think
Yeah,
I think that's like one of the very
was in the
last
editor's
things
tap.
I can remember. After that,
Yeah.
after everyone left the editor's tap and we all went on to Brewdog. Yeah, Brewdog was just a blur to me. The only reason I know that I was there was I was trying to find my glasses, looking for Brewdog for 2 hours on at like 1 a.m. in the morning, and my bank balance or bank statement said that I was at Brewdog. It said that I was also very drunk. So yeah, cheers to everyone that was there. It was great to meet you all, and yeah, look forward to the next opportunity to have all the Guinness in London.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. Really, really, really good. Right, let's crack on with today's show. So, in tonight's episode, we're going to be discussing the Wildcard 1 strategy as voted for on Twitter. So we'll be discussing that, and then we'll be looking at some mid-price midfielders, followed by some Twitter Q&A. So let's start with the Wildcard 1 strategy. And I guess with this, it's just a case of an early look into where we might be wildcarding. A lot of people have different strategies. Some people will be doing it ad hoc. Some people will have a set strategy that they want to do it by this particular game week, etc. We just thought we'd have a quick look, see when there's the major fixture swings, and when to target it. I guess I'll go first. And for myself, because I'll be taking a different strategy this year, and I'll be going by the ownership model strategy. I guess my aim of when to do the wildcard really depends on when the template changes. So when the percentage ownership changes drastically is when I'm going to have to trigger that wildcard. And if it's kind of like a case of doing a more than a -4, that's when I'm going to have to then look at doing the wild card. I think outside of that, my initial thoughts were like game week 7 or 8. I've seen a few fixture swings there. So you've got Villa between 8 and 13. Have got a good fixture swing. Between 4 and 14, Wolves look good. 7 and 13, United's don't look great. And then between 8 and 18, Cities look good. Between 7 and 12, Cities look good. Chelsea's look good. And then between 4 and 11, Arsenal's look good. So those are kind of the major swings that I saw. And it all kind of revolves around 7 and 8. So for me, that's kind of what I'm initially looking at. But like I say, if early on a new template starts to change, that's when I'm going to have to move. And it could be as early as game week 4, potentially. So that's kind of my initial thoughts on it. I don't know what you think, Rob.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people like setting up their team. And for those that are watching on the YouTube, you can see the ticker there for the first 4 game weeks of the season. And yeah, you've got some sort of nice little fixtures for a lot of people. A lot of people, like we've seen a lot of people get like Sanchez and Lamptey or Veltman or Duncan, because Brighton have got those first 4 game weeks that are quite good. And then after that, they've got Leicester in game week 5, Palace away game week 6, which is a derby, and then they've got Arsenal game week 7. So it kind of gets a bit trickier after that. Then they've got City and then Liverpool in 9 and 10. So yeah, Brighton, like those that have got the double up defensively, will probably be looking to move away from that after the first 4 or 5 game weeks. Likewise with, as you said, with United, relatively decent fixtures for the first 4 game weeks. Then, game week 5, West Ham away, could be the first like little tricky one. But then between 7 and 11, they play Everton, Leicester, Liverpool, Spurs, and Man City. And a lot of people, it looks like, are going to be starting with 3 United assets, which 3 months ago would have probably been unheard of. It might have been the case of Bruno, and that's about it. Now I think a lot of people are struggling to work out who they want in their team from United, because of how strong they've dealt in the transfer window. Likewise with Spurs, like people might want to jump on for not necessarily game week 1, but Wolves, Watford, Palace after that. Then they've got Chelsea and Arsenal in 5 and 6. So they might want to jump on Spurs assets from game week 2 onwards, but then be looking to come off them after game week 4. So yeah, I'm all for the game week 4. Let's see what we did there. All for the game week 4 wildcard, because there is that, especially from the bigger teams, there is a few fixture swings there. But personally, I've never been keen on using my wild card early. I like to save it for a bit, to kind of try and get some of the you've got 2 international breaks in September and October. I think the first international breaks after is between game week 3 and 4, which international breaks bring injuries along because it's World Cup qualifiers as well, so it's not friendlies or anything. So you're going to get players getting injured and all sorts of trouble that you might not expect. So yeah, I'd like to kind of at least get 1 or 2 of the international breaks out the way. So I tend to wait at least sort of 10 game weeks in, try and just make sure I can navigate my way through. So I'll be, like everyone, I'll be loading up on these first 4 or 5 game weeks, but confident enough that I won't be like needing to splash out transfers, and hopefully, unless Kane does move to City, then I'll be able to sort of carry that game week 1 transfer all the way through with me, and just use don't use a transfer game week 1 and then carry it over constantly and just make 1 transfer a week until that fixture swing happens. And hopefully be in a good place by the time everyone else is wildcarding at the start. So I'm actually looking later on, for those who are on video, I'll bring the fixtures up now. So around game week 12 and 13, there's a few teams that have some favourable fixtures, some teams that you could rotate between, like defensively, where they've got maybe some cheaper 4.5 defensive assets, where you could have one and then bench them the next week for a different one. But my main thing is the fixtures for Chelsea, Leicester, Liverpool, Man City, and Man United, all around this time, look very favourable. I mean, Chelsea probably got the worst out of those 4 or 5. They played Leicester, Man United, Watford, West Ham, Leeds, Everton. But they would have had a nice fixture run leading up to that, where they would have played Southampton, Brentford, Norwich, Newcastle, Burnley before those fixtures. So they're obviously a team that you'd be targeting with the early wildcard, and you might have them.
Yep.
Those, and I'll be looking to sort of buy game week 7 when they play Southampton. I'll be looking at having 2 or 3 Chelsea assets in my side. Also knowing that the week before, though, they play City, so got to be careful of who I'm bringing in as my cover there. But with United, they play Watford, then they've got Chelsea, then Arsenal, but then after that they've got Palace, Palace at home, Norwich away. Sorry, I'm just bringing it up on my screen. So they've got Palace at home, Norwich away, Brentford away, Brighton at home, Newcastle away, Burnley at home, Wolves at home, Villa away, and then they play West Ham at home in 23. So
that's a ridiculous one.
Yeah, they've got this crazy run of games, and sort of by then we'll know much know what the system's going to be. How they there's lots of talk at the moment whether they're going to go into a 4-3-3, or whether Bruno kind of sit back a little bit more to allow more freedom for the front three, or whether Bruno will still be staying in that sort of hole behind the 9. So we might not know for sure, even in game week 1, what's going to happen because it's Leeds, and they might set up slightly differently tactically. So we'll have lots of information about United by then. Also by then, pretty much the whole squad will be fully fit. I think even Rashford will be there or thereabouts after his shoulder surgery. Then City. So City, as you see, so they play Man United and City play each other in game week 11, and then City play Everton in 12, West Ham in 13, then Villa away, then Watford away, then Wolves at home, Leeds at home, Newcastle away, Leicester at home, Brentford away. That's up to game week 20. So again, for City, some really good fixtures, and if they've got Harry Kane there, I think you'd be captaining him out of those 7 weeks, probably 5 of them. You're probably captaining Harry Kane. And if you haven't got Harry Kane, you'll be captaining Kevin De Bruyne. So yeah, City from then, I think they're well worth a treble up. You'd probably end up going treble defence so that you could afford either Kane or De Bruyne. There's some tricky price points for City.
Double defence, you mean?
Yeah, double defence. There's some tricky price points with their attackers where it'd be tough to have a De Bruyne and Kane, and then a Sancho from Man United. So yeah, I'd probably be looking defensively at City, with Liverpool in that time. So they have Arsenal in 12, which we'll know more about Arsenal come that point in the season. They're still one of those teams that it's hard to have that bias from them, like from the last couple of seasons where they've been very inconsistent. And I think I still want to see some more additions in there. Would you agree? Like defensively
With
and
Arsenal, yeah.
yeah.
It's there a wait and see. I can't tell. I can't ever tell with Arsenal.
So yeah, we'll know more about Arsenal. So Liverpool play Arsenal in game week 12, but then Liverpool have Southampton at home. They have Everton away in the derby, then Wolves away, Villa at home, Newcastle at home, Spurs away, Leeds away, Leicester away, Chelsea away. So there's a few fixtures in there that, like the Southampton at home, Wolves away, Villa at home, Newcastle at home. Those four fixtures will be worth targeting with Liverpool assets. Now, that's three teams there that have got a lot of premium players, and I think for yourself, it's probably going to be a tough time to follow a template because I don't think there's going to be much of a. I think there'll be people taking gambles in going in different directions at this point.
Agreed.
There'll be people going for United. There'll be people going. Well, we say this now, like any of these teams could lose 6 of the first 12 games, and you might be put off them completely. But in theory, all three of them should have had a decent start. And with United, they'd have come off the back of 4 or 5 tricky fixtures, and we'll know exactly where they are, sort of standing as a contender. Like people have said that, is the signings of Sancho and Varane, is that enough for them to be title contenders? Do they need more? But by then we'll know.
I think overall, it looks like there's wildcard possibilities in 4, 8, or 12.
Yeah,
as in game week 4, 8, or 12. Like there's merit for all three, I think. And it really depends. So I think this year, which is different to last year, so a lot of people prefer to wildcard before the doubles, right? So the doubles are, back end of game week, like around game week 30ish this year, aren't they? There isn't any major doubles like around 20, which there was last year. And so last year it was a case of you could leave a wild card, you could do a wild card early because you knew that around game week 20 you were going to do another wild card, or some people did it around game week 20, right? Whereas this year, a lot of people that are going to be playing it alongside the doubles, the second wild card, are going to have to wait till at least game week 30. So if you do end up doing an early wildcard around game week 4 or 8, you've got 20 weeks before you're then going to use your next one, which is quite a long period of time, right? So your theory of waiting quite a long time does ring true, and it's probably one of the better options to go with, unless you're going to just navigate it with just your free transfers. Basically, that's the only other thing. If you are going to go early, is just bearing in mind if you are planning to use the second one around the doubles, you'll have to wait at least 25 weeks to use it.
I mean, this is why. I mean, I was one of those people that used to like wildcard in sort of the first 3 or 4 weeks. I think 3 seasons ago I wildcarded in game week 3.
That's what I did last year
because I felt I was I'd fallen so far behind already with just the wrong decisions at the start, and players I brought in were wrong. But then I've kind of learnt to be a bit more patient. Last year, it didn't. I mean, for a lot of people that saved that wild card for game week, I think it was game week 17 or 18, something like that. Like it was really late hitting the wild card button, and a lot of people it wasn't worth it waiting that long. And for me, it wasn't worth waiting that long because I think it was a really low scoring double game week that everyone was trying to target. So I think wildcarding too early, it leaves you very vulnerable sometimes to injuries, to teams not performing as expected. Like a lot of people would have been last season wildcarding and making sure they had like a lot of people going on to like a triple Liverpool defence early. And then Van Dijk gets injured. When was that? Like game week 4, game week 5,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're screwed. And there was a lot of people then stuck with a double Liverpool defence for a long time, like hoping that they'd regain that form, and it never happened. So it's like situations like that that could occur. Like it's very rare that it would occur, but a lot of people were caught out wildcarding early and locking into a Liverpool defence, and it didn't work out. So you know, I'm always the kind of person that likes a bit of it, like to try and get as much information as possible, especially where there's so many of the forwards and like there's so many value forwards in the Premier League this season that we don't necessarily know enough about. Like some of them are they were they one season wonders for last season and they're not going to pull off the same numbers again.
This year. Yeah.
And are there, and then there's other players like Ivan Toney who we've spoken about a fair bit in the last couple of weeks. Are they good enough to be in a Premier League striker? And at the moment, I think it's like 40% of managers in the game believe that he is good enough, so they've got him in their team, but they might not want him after a few weeks. But by sort of 10 game weeks in, we'll know about these players and know whether they can handle it at this level. So that's kind of why I always try to avoid the early ones. And that's why I saw this late fixture swing in sort of game week 12, 13 that it just caught my eye, and especially with the sort of those big three clubs, Liverpool, United, and City, with their fixtures. And I mean, for those on the video, you can also see there's West Ham, Spurs, Leicester, Leeds, Chelsea, Burnley, and Arsenal, who've also all got relatively okay fixtures. Like that other sort of group, they might have one or two teams that finished in the top 4 last season in the space of those 6 game weeks between 12 and 17. But as I said at the top, they're teams that you might be able to find a bit of a bargain that you can rotate in and out the players with teams that haven't got that have got the fixture in that particular game week.
Okay, cool. Right. Anything else to discuss on the wildcard one strategy then before we move on?
No, not for now. I think it's something that once we get to the first international break, we can like reassess it. Because again, I think that wildcard one, it's important for setting yourself up, because knowing that it's going to be for probably about 10 to 15 game weeks that you're setting yourself up for. So I think you've got to sort of have a look back at sort of the fixtures that have passed and see which players are overperforming / underperforming, who's decent value for money, especially myself looking at stats this season to try and navigate my way through with my team. I want as much information, and we all know that stats such as XG, XA, they don't work if you're only using a like 5 game
Small
weeks.
amount of data.
You want players that have played sort of upwards of sort of 600 to 700 minutes at least, but before you're thinking of a wild card. So you're going to be looking at sort of game week 10 there. So yeah.
Okay, right. Let's move on then to our topic, and this is one that we chose. And we're going to be looking at some mid-price midfielders. So both of us have chosen 3 players each that we like, from between 6.5 and 8.5. And we thought we would tell you about the players and then why we've chosen those players. And then we'll look after we've discussed that. Rob will go through some statistics of those players and how they look. So if I talk about my 3 that I've chosen first, it's better just to whack them all out. So I looked at, I liked the look of Bowen, Rafinha, and Foden. So I'll go through each one quickly why I like them. So Bowen, I've been watching him. So obviously I'm a West Ham fan. I've been watching him in pre-season, and he's looking a lot more attacking than what he normally is. Obviously he's been playing on that wing anyway, but he's been playing a lot better. Towards the back end of last season, he didn't play as much because Lingard was there, and some of the games he didn't start. Ben Rama was starting more, so he didn't play it as much. But I really like the look of Lingard, of Bowen, and actually I like the look of Ben Rama as well. But obviously we were looking at just 6.5 and above. If it was 6, I would have chosen Ben Rama. But yeah, I think Bowen's one to look out for this season. Rafinha, goes without saying, his price is ridiculously cheap for his production in terms of what he's producing. A lot of people, I've seen some tweets going around that, so Souček and Bowen scored more points than Rafinha last season, but Rafinha didn't play that many minutes. He always also got a horrible injury as well. But I think after game week 1, their fixtures look good, and I think he's a really good option. And then Phil Foden's my other one. It is dependent whether or not he starts, right? Like, we saw the back end of last season, Foden was starting to get minutes. He was playing well in the Champions League. He didn't get that much of a look in for England. That much, really. He didn't really play. But I think this could be his breakout season where he starts delivering and starting in that City 11. I think if he can get that start regularly in that 11, I think he can definitely perform.
I mean, with Foden,
So that's-
like,
yeah.
with the rumours that they're trying to offload Sterling, that would be supposedly to make room for Foden to play down that left side of the midfield. But then you'd worry if a certain Jack Grealish then gets signed by City,
Take that spot. Yeah.
because then it will just leave Foden in the same space, same sort of position that he has been before, kind of rotating with other players in and out. The likes of, in the past, it's been Sterling, KDB, and occasionally down the right-hand side where he's been rotated. Or it also depends on whether City sign a striker, I guess.
Yep.
We've seen at times where KDB was deployed as a false 9, and whether Foden's able to sort of fill in that spot behind, like in that area around and behind, and rotate with KDB in and out of that false 9. So that would be interesting, but I think at the moment, I'm just not sure, and we're not sure who's the sort of comings and goings at Man City. I think they're going to be very busy in the next week or so. I think we'll see a lot of transfer activity in and out of both Manchester clubs.
Right, you can talk through your 3.
So my 3, I've gone with Nicolas Pepe, which some people out there might be laughing, but I think trying to take away my own bias, because I think overall he hasn't been that impressive overall. Maybe not worth the money that was paid for him. But towards the end of last season, he was pretty good and a lot more consistent, and at times a real threat, like one of Arsenal's main threats. So yeah, and at 7.5, I think, where last season I think he was 8.5. He might have been
More than that. I think it was 9.5.
So yeah, so he wouldn't have been. There'd been no value in him whatsoever. And I think at 7.5, I think you've got a great bit of value, especially from if we see an Arsenal side that is performing consistently well. So yeah, I've gone with Nicholas Pepe first of all. Second up, I've gone with Mason Greenwood. So he's 7.5 mid. I think once we get into sort of the European part of the season, I could see him starting as a number 9 a lot, rotating with Cavani. And I think if he does really perform well, I think he could potentially lock himself in as a starter up front for United. Still, obviously, very young, and at times last season we didn't see what we saw from him during the Project Restart when he was just on fire. But I think with the extra creativity that we're getting from Sancho, and with that, the speed that we're probably going to see United come forward at teams, like we're going to see them break at teams with like rapid pace, and I think that just it fits Greenwood perfectly. The ball moving very quickly from back to front, and yeah, I mean we know that he can finish. He's got one of the sweetest strikes in that I've seen in the league. There's not many people that can strike a ball as sweet as him with both feet as well. So yeah, I really like Mason Greenwood this season, and yeah, the potential for out of position also makes him that bit more valuable. And then finally, Mason Mount, who I think is criminally underpriced at 7.5 million. That it shocked me when I was like having a look at the players for this, and I was just like, right, who is there in that gap? And I just saw Mason Mount there, and I was like, I swear that he was a million more, because he has been brilliant, but maybe the inconsistencies of Chelsea at the start of the season, up until Lampard got sacked and Tuchel took over. I think from that moment on, he's been seen as one of Tuchel's favourites. Like he's one of the first names on the team sheet. He's very creative, often on most set pieces, unless Ziyech is on the pitch. So yeah, no, I think especially with England, he was quite impressive when he played as well. I think he's been let down at Chelsea last season by the form of Timo Werner. Like he was brilliant creatively, but they just not having Chelsea without a sort of a proper informed striker really suffered. And they're another one team that I think they're definitely in the market for a new number 9 in the next couple of weeks. So there'll be another team that if they make that signing, I mean Mason Mount could be great value there at 7.5.
Cool. Right. Do you want to have a look at it from a statistical point of view? Then we've got some stats on there, and pick out some ones that who tops the stats out of all of these midfielders. So who should we be looking at? Who, I guess, from our eye test point of view, in our gut, which is what the 3 that we chose were each. Who's coming out from the stats the best?
So we'll just go let's go on basic goals first. And this actually shocked me. So out of those 6, the only player to hit double figures for goals last season was Nicholas Pepe with 10.
Oh wow! Wow.
Okay. With 0.56 goals per 90, which I mean that's pretty good return to be fair for someone that's ended up being priced at 7.5 mil. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised when I saw that particular stat. I mean, second up in the list is Phil Foden, 9 goals at 0.5 goals per 90. So again, a decent return there from Phil Foden. at 8 million. So yeah, I was just very surprised by Nicolas Pepe being up there. I mean, Bowen did have his problems with injury. Rafinha only signed late into the season. Greenwood, as we said, didn't hit that form. And Mount, probably not much of a goal scorer, more of a creator. So you wouldn't be looking really for goals from him. And then assists for last season, the top assists out of these 6. And again, the only one to reach double figures was Rafinha with 11 assists at 0.36 assists per 90, which again is the top out of the 6. Yeah, and to think though that could and should have been. I mean, we spoke about it. Was it last week or a couple of weeks ago? We spoke about Patrick Bamford and how well Rafinha had done with that supply from the right hand side, and just no one seemed to be able to finish the crosses he put in. So you could probably put that closer to 20 if people finished the chances he created.
Yeah.
So that leads us on to shot creating actions. So passes that led into it was a dangerous pass that then gave it to someone to then lay it off to the striker for a shot. So shot creating actions, the most is Mason Mount with 163 shot creating actions over the course of last season, with a massive 5.08 per 90.
Wow.
So the closest to him was Rafinha with 133. And then after that, there's no player over 80. Jared Bowen's on 78. So Rafinha 4.33 shot creating actions per 90. Then Bowen's like almost just over half of that at 2.74. So that kind of backs up what I was saying about Mount being very much the creative player in that Chelsea side, and a Chelsea side that I think it'll be very interesting to see them at the start of the season with that added pressure of being European champions. How will that fare on them? Will they start the season off very confidently, or will there be a bit of a nervousness because normally you'd rate a team that wins the European Cup the season before, you'd put them as favourites, if not joint favourites at least, to win the league. And yeah, at the moment, I think City, Liverpool, and United all sit above them as favourites to win the league. So I think a lot of people have maybe forgotten about Chelsea a little bit with the excitement of the Euros. So goal creating actions. So these actions that they would have led to a shot that then went in. So out of Rafinha's 133 shot creating actions, 20 of those led to goals. Whilst Mason Mount with his 163, only 14 led to goals. But neither of them top it per 90. Phil Foden tops it per 90 at 0.78, which, I mean, I think that's kind of it would be understandable with Phil Foden only playing 1,616 minutes last season compared. I mean, Mount's almost 2,900, Rafinha almost 2,800. Yeah, I didn't realise Foden didn't play that much. Really, he seems to be on the pitch quite almost every game, but it's only ever sort of cameo appearances, and a lot of his sort of big performances where he's played more of the game were in Europe,
Champions League.
Yeah.
Where
he was brilliant in the knockout stages, wasn't he? So, like you said, the potential's there with Foden to, if he's on the pitch for longer, then he should the return should come with it. That's what that says to me. Then finally, we'll just move on to like a little bit of sort of XG and XA for those that like it. For those that don't like it, skip on for a minute and you can join us afterwards. XG, top of the XG for these six is Mason Greenwood at 7.4 goals, which is 0.37 per 90. Nicholas Pepe actually has the highest per 90 XG, which is 0.39, with his 7 expected goals. Then XA, top of that is Rafinha, expected assists of 9.2. His actual was 11, so he outperformed his expected assists, but yeah, his per 90 was 0.3, which, I mean, for out of everyone there, there's not sort of the next highest after that is Mount at 0.24. So yeah, comfortably ahead. But I mean, with all of these players, that I mean, other than Jared Bowen, and as you said, though, I mean, I think the transfer of Jesse Lingard affected him negatively with his output, because he was generally pushed out to the right-hand side, where he had Soufal overlapping him a lot. So Soufal's output would have been more reflective of Jared Bowen's.
Yep, agreed.
So yeah, he like if they don't sign another player to play in that role, Ben Rama stays out on the left. And like we said, I think last week we said that he's a player to watch for the start of the season, see where he's playing in that West Ham side, and hopefully, yeah, those numbers will improve. But with the rest of them, they're all fairly, like, they all top the charts in sort of some of them top the charts in sort of 5 or 6 areas. Some top them in 3 or 4.
I mean, my take on it overall, like, obviously there is a difference in price between the top and the bottom. So what was it? Rafinha 6.5, and who is it the highest? Foden we
Foden
picked
at
as
8.
8.
Yeah.
My feeling is depending on your squad makeup, but generally you're probably only going to have a maximum of 2 of these players, right?
Yeah.
Because most people are going to have Bruno and Salah, or Salah and Sancho, or Salah and Son, for example, and then you're going to have a maximum of these 2 types of players, right? I think value for money wise, it looks like Rafinha appears to be the main one.
Yep, agreed.
The one that kind of is the standout at 6.5. He got the most assists, and then goals wise, he was 3 behind Pepe, who scored 10, and obviously Rafinha scored 7. Bear in mind, Rafinha didn't play as much last year as well, but then nor did kind of Pepe or Foden, really.
I mean, well,
I think
these outputs and stats also include, for Rafinha, they include, I've forgotten who he played for the start of last season, but it does include.
he was with Leeds from the beginning.
Oh, well,
he was from Leeds from the beginning.
Oh, it must have been right at the beginning that he. I think he played 1 or 2 games for someone else.
Yeah,
previous
so
club.
I think Rafinha appears to be the main standout, but I think what this gives you is an idea to when they hit those fixture swings, you can look at moving those players on. I don't think these are the Brunos and the Salahs and the Kanes that you keep in for 38 game weeks. These are the types of players that you have in for those periods of time. So between 4 and 11, Pepe, Arsenal have got really good fixture on, so you could look at that. The beginning, I think between 3 and 8 or something like that, Leeds have got a good fixture on, so you could look at Rafinha. And I think it's a case of picking these players as
the fixtures turn it in and out.
Fixtures. Yeah, and
Yeah,
and
agreed.
that's what I think the types of players will be good for. I don't think they will be good for that long period of 30, 10 game weeks or 15 game weeks or whatever. So yeah, keep an eye on it. That's my opinion. I don't know if yours is any different to that, Rob. But
Yeah,
that's-
yeah. I mean, there's players like Foden, Greenwood. I think Foden may be slightly overpriced, depending on how many minutes he's going to be playing. Because for 8 million, you want to have an 8 million midfielder. You want them to be starting like week in, week out, really, don't you? You don't want to have
yeah,
8 million getting you 1 point. So yeah, you want your 8 million midfielder to be starting. And it's likewise for Greenwood as well, which I think with Rashford out, I think Greenwood does start. Um, Mason Mount is pretty much locked in. I think Pepe is pretty much locked in, and Rafinha's locked in. Like, I think it's just Foden really that we're not sure about out of those six. The rest should and will start the majority of games. So you've got to look for those fixture swings and use these players as to target, and maybe when we get to those sort of later fixture swings, sort of around 8 and around 12, 13, we can come back and look at some of these players again, and like because we might want to, for like, as we said with that 12, 13 time, we might want Mason Greenwood and Phil Foden in our teams if they're starting the majority of games. And yeah, but we won't know that at the start of the season. And yeah, in that game week 8 time, Mason Mount could be in almost every team out there, especially if he starts the
yeah.
season well.
Okay, let's go to some questions then. Rob, have you got those questions loaded up? We asked for some from the Twitter sphere. We've got a few.
The Twitter sphere community. Yes, so we've got a few. We'll start off with Half Hour Fantasy Podcast because his question actually relates to Rafinha. So whilst we're on the subject, hi guys, Rafinha Harrison double up. Thoughts after game week 1? Would you have both of them?
So Leeds have got Everton at home, Burnley away, Liverpool at home, and then a very, very good run between 5 and 10. They've got Newcastle, West Ham, West Brom. Sorry, not West Brom. West Ham, Watford, Southampton, Wolves, and then Norwich. I wouldn't look at the double up from game week 1, is my opinion. But I would potentially look at them from game week 5 or 7. I actually took out Rafinha from my side today to try and fit in Son to see if I can try and squeeze him in.
But you can't.
So I can if I go. So at the moment I'll just kind of say what I've looked at. So I'm looking at Son and a 4.5 forward versus Rafinha and DCL. Same sort of money, but I'm just looking at the options and then starting a 4.5 defender instead. So those are the options. I'm just trying to weigh it up and work out what's best at the moment. But yeah, me personally, I'm not looking at the double up. I might do from game week 5. I don't know. What do you think, Rob?
Yeah, I'm umming and ahhing about the double up. I think it all depends on how I like the rest of my team. I'm still a long way from having my team lock in, but yeah, and like where I'll be looking at the stats, I probably won't be like I'll probably go with Rafinha, but I won't be looking at getting a second Leeds asset straight away, especially when with Wolves, we don't know what sort of Wolves side we're going to get, and it could be a very good Wolves side come game week 3. We just don't know enough about them at the moment. Same like Southampton. I'm looking at the wrong team. Everton, Burnley, Liverpool. Those fixtures, and for some reason I was looking at Man United fixtures. So yeah, Everton, Burnley, Liverpool. Everton, well, they're an unknown, like Wolves. Burnley, would we be counting on Leeds to go crazy against Burnley? I'm not sure. And then Liverpool, who by then I'd imagine will be pretty much full strength. Well, they will be at full strength. I think Van Dijk started a friendly yesterday or the day before. So you'd imagine that they're very close to being a full strength side. And yeah, I think having one of them's okay. I'm not sure about the double up though. Not until I see the numbers telling me to. All right.
Okay. Simple question.
So next up, Paul or FPL Glasto, what sleepers are on your watch list? So what players are there? It won't be in your team, but you're just going to be keeping an eye on in the opening game weeks of the season, possibly for that wild card move.
So Benrahma, Sarr, Watford Sarr, West Ham's Benrahma, and for game week 4, Pepe from Arsenal.
You've basically stolen my answer. Sarr was someone I was thinking of, and Pepe obviously was another one. That's why I wanted to kind of have a look at the numbers in this. And then Mbuemo as well from Brentford. He scored against us yesterday. It was a good finish.
He did indeed.
Poor defence. It was poor defence, but I mean, have you seen the highlights of that game yesterday? Brentford.
No, I've only seen Pereira's goal.
Like the goals just gradually. So the first one by Elanga, young United forward, is like a scissor kick near the penalty spot, like a sideways scissor kick, not an overhead kick. The second one is like hit on the half volley into the top corner by I've forgotten who scored that for Brentford. The third one is Pereira's like goal of the season contender. Like goal of the decade contender. It's like absolute fucking belter. And Mbuemo's were poor defensively, and then he just slots it quite confidently past Heaton. And he'd only been on the pitch for like 5 minutes. Mbuemo is someone that I just want to see how he settles into the Premier League, because especially if Brentford do play this 2 up top and he's one of the 2, then like Greenwood, he's a OOP. We spoke about him a little bit in the first podcast. So yeah, that's who I'd be looking at. Finally, from Steve, evening or afternoon, Steve, depends when you're listening. Is a front line of Watkins, Antonio, and DCL a decent way to go unless Kane goes to Man City, of course? I like Watkins, Antonio, and DCL. Out of the 3, Antonio is probably the one that I least like. What do you think?
I've been having a lot of second thoughts on DCL, you know. He's probably the one I least like out of them.
Even with
for me,
with those opening fixtures, Southampton at home, Leeds away, Brighton. I almost said Birmingham. I always did what you do. Brighton away and Burnley at home.
Very good opening fixtures. I don't know.
After that they've got Villa and Norwich.
Yeah, they've got great opening fixtures. I don't know.
Their first 6 game weeks.
Everything are ridiculous. Yeah, their fixtures are very good. I don't know. I just get put off by Everton a lot, and I've got Dean already in my side, so that's why I took out DCL at the moment.
And the other thing with DCL is he performs better when Richarlison's not there, and Richarlison ain't going to be playing in the first couple of game weeks.
That's true.
Yeah, we're still. What's the date today? 29th. So we're still a week away from the final of the Olympic Games tournament, and Brazil like blowing teams away. And I think he scored 5 goals already in the tournament. I think in 3 games he scored 5 goals. That's the one thing that, like, knowing that in the past when Richarlison's been away or injured, or suspended because he picks up red cards as well.
I still don't know where their
DCL.
creativity is coming from, though. That's the problem.
Yeah, I think Everton are another side that there's probably a lot of dealings going on behind the scenes because they're going to need we're pretty certain they're going to need another creative midfielder to come in. So they've got the well, they had the manager in charge last season as well. They've got Benitez there to oversee it all. Ideally, they just need someone to rotate with Rodriguez, don't they? Like keep Rodriguez, like be able to play Rodriguez for an hour every week, like without him getting injured, and then you play the other player for half an hour every week. So in an ideal world, because at times at the start of last season, I think it was the Premier League schedule, like the way that the league was scheduled last season, it was just too hectic for a player that's as injury prone as James Rodriguez is. And this season, with the games being back to normal, and sort of that week's rest between games, I think it'll do him a lot of good to just have that rest and recuperation between. So I'm for DCL and slightly against Antonio, but you're for Antonio but against DCL.
I'm indifferent on Antonio.
But we both agree on Watkins.
We both agree on Watkins, yes. Right, okay, that's all the questions, right, Rob?
Yep, that is it for the questions. We did have we did have another question, but which was how do I join the mini league? So that leads us on to that leads us on to
say so you can wrap up the pod.
From Mr. Sports Gamer, he asked how do you join the mini league? So for those watching on the video, you'll be able to see the code for the podcast mini league, where the winner will receive a shirt with our face on, or our names, or something, or your name if you want it. So yeah, that will be for the winner of the podcast mini league. The link to join, like the auto join link, will be in the podcast description underneath, or in the YouTube description, video description underneath as well. So you can join the podcast mini league. If you want to take part in the big FPL mini league, there is an entry requirement. If you, again, at the bottom of the descriptions underneath the podcast, there's a Google form that you link to, that you can see all the full details. There's loads of different competitions. Currently, the entrants are just over 150, which is crazy considering we're still over 2 weeks away from the start of the season. So yeah, get involved. Yeah, plenty of prizes to be won. Yeah, it'd be good. That's all in support of Rudrick Football Club, who are on the Sussex and Surrey border near Horsham.
Awesome. Right, Rob, anything else to discuss before we go?
No, I think that's about it. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. To you, the listeners, thanks for tuning in. You can find us on Twitter at FPL_Happy Hour. We're also on a number of podcasts, including Spotify and Apple Music, and our YouTube channel, FPL Happy Hour. Please like, subscribe, and share. And all your retweets are really appreciated. So until next week, take care.
Get it right. See you later, guys. Cheers.